right, so in this video, okay, we are still talking about converting fractions to percents to decimals. This video goes along with the crash course at outschool.com, converting fractions to decimals to percents. And if you would like to take that class, you can always look down in the description and see a link to that class live on outschool.com, and you can take it for yourself. Now, in this group, we kind of do it in different, because I do it one way and then we do it another way and we compare the two ways, but I started out doing it the two ways. So change the decimal to a percent to a fraction can sometimes be easier, and this is true. Sometimes people like to see it in this way. So in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm first going to change it into a decimal, because these are decimal percents. Sometimes it's easier when it's a decimal first to be able to say, oh, that's 312 over 1,000, because the 2 is in the thousands place. We talked about this in one of the first parts of the video, all right? And I can go ahead and reduce this if I want. Remember, that's not a big deal. We can start out by reducing it by a 2. So that would give me 156 over 500. So I can still reduce this down, right? I can reduce it down to 78 over 250. And this is why trees are so much easier for reducing. And then I can do it again by 339, and 2 into this would be half of that is 125. So that's my last reduce it down, because this is prime now. All right, again, sometimes it's easier to just move that decimal first, making it a decimal instead of a percent, and then throwing that number over its place value. This is the thousands place. All right, if you hear my dog in the background, she's making all kinds of weird noises. Again, 2 places, and then say, okay, so my decimal is 0.512. That 2 is in the thousands place. I'm going to take the decimal part, the numeric value for the decimal, over its place value, and I'm going to go ahead and divide this down. So I'm trying to think, 4, 1, 2, 3, yeah, these are divisible by 4. Let's go ahead and do 4. So 4 goes into that 1, 11 goes into it 2, 3, it goes into 32, 8. And then down here, that goes into that 2, 5, 0. Right, I can reduce them by 2 again. Looks like I'm going to be doing it again. But let's go ahead and see what the answer to this is. Oh, actually I will not, because 64 and 125 are not going to share the same factors. Okay, again, I got to move that decimal and make it a decimal number first. Filling in my 0, so it's 0.036 this time. That 6 is in the thousands place. So I'm going to take 36 and I'm going to put it over 1,000. All right, let's go ahead and divide by 2. And let's divide by 2 again. And it's going to give me 9 over 250. We only have a few more to go, examples to go before we get to the chart. Okay, so in these type, we can quickly see what they are, because look, these are decimal place values. This is tenths. This is tenths. This is 100ths. This is also 100ths. So I can just put these in the decimal place that they belong in. So I put my numeric value in the tenths place. So it's 0.4. Well, if I move that 2 places to the right, that is also 40%. All right, so I need to put my 7 in the tens place. That's that very first place after the decimal. Okay, and if I were to move that decimal 2 places to the right, I would have 70%. Again, in these two, we get a hundredths, okay? So if I have a hundredths, then I just have to put it in the hundredths place, which is 2 places out. Look at this, I have 2 numbers. And if I move that 2 places, that's 53%. Again, with this one, I just got to put it in the hundredths place because that's the place value in the fraction. And I get 0.42, which is 42% if I were to move that decimal 2 places. Okay, this last one though is not in a place value for a decimal. It's not in tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. It's not in a factor of 100. So what I could do is change it into a percent first. And that means putting the percent value. I know that percents are out of 100, but I don't know what my percent is, okay? But I do know my opposite operation, and that says that if the 100 is dividing the x, to get rid of it, I have to multiply the x. These two cancel out. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. That is the rule of equality of math. And then I can get 200 over 5, which equals 40. X equals 40. So my percent value in this one is 40%. Okay? Which would be, if I move that decimal 2 places, 0.4. All right, and I could keep doing that. I could keep doing that way, and they would work on any given one of these. But, and that is called the proportion method. But there is another method, okay? And that is just dividing them. Decimals work, dividing works off the decimal system, all right? The top goes inside the divisor, the bottom on the outside. If you have trouble memorizing that, just put a line going up. Have a big wind comes, pushes it over. 15's on the outside. This now looks like this. 13's on the inside. 15 cannot go into 13. So I have to put a decimal and a 0. Well, 15 can go into 130. And let's think here. 4 times would be 60. 8 times would be 120. All right, after I get on the right side of the decimal, I can add as many zeros as I want. And I know this can go in 6 times, which would be 90. And then I'm just going to keep repeating that 6 over and over again. So whenever we get a repeater, we go to the first time it comes up and we put a bar. So the answer as a decimal would be 8, 6 with a bar. All right, if I move that decimal place 2 places to the right, I have 86%. All right, so let's do the same thing for this one. Let's go ahead and divide them. 20 does not go into 7, so I put a decimal point and a 0. 20 can go into 73 times, that's 60. Gives me a 10. Drop a 0, because I can do that when I'm on the right side of a decimal, and that goes in 5 times. So our answer to our decimal is 0.35, and if I move that decimal 2 places, I get 35%. In this one, 42 goes on the inside, 50 on the outside. 50 can't go into 42, need a decimal and a 0. And again, just as a reminder, if you're having trouble with these, you can always take my dividing decimals class, and it will be a plethora of help to help you get these right. So if I divide these two numbers, I get 0.84, which if I move that decimal 2 places is 84%. All right, in this one I get 38 on the inside, 20 on the outside. Oh, look at this, 20 can go into 38. Well, look here, our numerator is bigger than our denominator, so we have an improper fraction that we could actually turn into a mixed number. So we should get a whole number when we divide. All right, I put a decimal and a 0. 20 can go into 118 9 times. And that is it. That will give me 0. So the decimal value is 1.9. If I move that 2 places, I'm going to have to add a 0 on the end. Give me 190%. But both are over, we have a whole number to them, and that's what I want. If my fraction could be a mixed number, my decimal needs to be a mixed decimal, and I need to have a percent over 100. All right, I have another one like this right here. 25 can go into 27 one time, leaving me with a 2. Need a decimal and a 0 if I'm going to keep going. 25 cannot go into 20, but it can go into 200 8 times. So my decimal value is going to be 0.08. If I move that decimal 2 places, I get 108%. We're getting there, I promise. All right, 19 is on the inside, 10 is on the outside. 10 can go into 19 one time, leaving me for a remainder of 9. Put my decimal, drop it down, 1.9. I think we got that already. But if I move that 2 places, I'm going to have to add in a 0, giving me 190%. One more in this set, and then we just have these to do. Okay. All right, 3 goes on the inside, 16 on the outside. 16 cannot go into 3, so I'm going to put a 0, a decimal, and another 0. Goes in one time. Just going to give me 14 coming out. Can add another 0. I'm going to say 16 can probably go into that 8 times. It does not matter if you're wrong. You just want to play with some numbers until you get it. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No one expects you to have your multiplication facts out to 16s or anything. Okay, it'd be nice, but in a perfect world we could retain all the information that we want, but we can't, and that's okay. All right, I'm gonna guess this is probably 6 times. Let's go 7 times. Yeah, let's go 7 times. All right, and I am going to guess 5 times. I think it's going to go in perfectly, but let's make sure. Yes. All right, so the decimal value for this one is 0.1875. If I move that 2 places, it's going to be 18.75%. 18.75%. All right, number 53 I do for you, and this is that method I showed you up at the beginning. And we'll go ahead and do a couple like that, okay? So percents are always over 100. I put my X, all right? The 100 is dividing the X, so I'm going to multiply it to both sides, okay? Crossing it out here. 100 times 45 is 45 with 2 more zeros. A little trick, when you have leading zeros at the end, trailing zeros, you can cancel them out. So I can cancel 1 0 off the top and the bottom, giving me 450 over 5. I know clearly 5 can go into that, and it can go in 90 times. So this is 90%. Now I can turn that percent to a decimal. So we're going backwards this time. We're turning it into percent and then into a decimal. So if I move that back, it'd be forward, it'd be 0.90 as the decimal. It's always x over 100. Multiply both sides by 100 to get rid of that. Remember the rule of equality, got to do the same to both sides. All right, and this is going to give me 100 over 20 equals x. Cancel out those zeros. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So it's 5%. If I were to move the decimal back 2 places, it'd be 0.05. All right, to get rid of that 100, I got to multiply both sides by 100. so that these cancel. I also, as a trick, can cancel a 0 on the top and the bottom now. So that means I would have 160 over 1 equals x, or 160%. Now let's look, because that's a big percent. Does that make sense? Yes, because the numerator is bigger than the denominator, meaning I have an improper fraction that could be turned into a mixed number. To turn it into a decimal, I move the decimal forward, giving me 1.60 or 1.6. All right, 2 more. Okay, so now I'm going to do my proportion. And you don't have to do this method. I only teach this method if people want to know it. If I know that you've never been taught it to do these, then I don't teach it, okay, if you're in one of my other classes. I'm going to go ahead and cancel my zeros before I do the math, giving me 130. That's my percent. That makes sense because my top is bigger than my bottom. My numerator is bigger than my denominator. If I move that back to forward 2 places, I have 1.30 as my decimal, or 1.3. Last one. All right, to get rid of the 100, I got to multiply both sides by 100. Cancel, cancel. I'm just going to cancel these zeros. It's going to give me 570 over 5 equals x. Now 5 can go into that number. It can go in 114 times, which is my percent. Move that decimal forward, you have 1.14 as your decimal. All right, in the next video, we will be doing this chart. So go ahead, go through, see if you can figure out what you did wrong, if you did anything wrong with one of your problems. And when you come back, please have this done. This is kind of like your assessment. If you could get all the examples, try to do this on your own, and then come back and I'll give you the answers to the sheet, and we'll see if you pass this crash course. So I'll see you in the next video.